The Velrani Empire had conquered more than 200 star systems. Their warships were feared across the galaxy. Their soldiers had never known defeat. When High Commander Vorath looked at the stars, he saw only territories waiting to be claimed. Today, he stood on the bridge of the Throne of Stars, the greatest warship ever built by his people. Behind him, 500 vessels waited for his command. They had traveled far to reach this corner of the galaxy, following reports of a small species that had somehow gone unnoticed for centuries. Humans, they called themselves. They lived on a single planet called Earth, in a system they named Sol. According to the intelligence reports, they had only recently begun to explore beyond their own world. Vorath found this amusing. A species barely capable of space travel would soon learn what it meant to face the Empire. "Aye, Commander," said Sub-Commander Kira, stepping forward with a data tablet. "We are detecting automated signal buoys ahead. They appear to be broadcasting a message." "Show me," Vorath commanded. The main screen flickered, and strange symbols appeared. The ship's translation system quickly converted them into Velrani text. "Warning. You are approaching Terran space. Entry without authorization is prohibited. Turn back." Now, Vorath laughed. The sound echoed across the silent bridge. His officers exchanged uncertain glances, but none dared to speak. "Is this their defense?" Vorath asked. "Signs telling us to go away? These humans must be even more primitive than we thought." Kira studied the data on her tablet. "The buoys are spread across a very wide area, High Commander. Hundreds of them. Someone spent considerable resources placing them here." "A waste of resources," Vorath replied. "Any species that relies on warnings instead of weapons has already lost." He turned to face his crew. These were veterans of dozens of campaigns. They had crushed rebellions, conquered homeworlds, and brought entire civilizations to their knees. A single planet of primitive beings would not slow them down. "Continue forward," Vorath ordered. "Ignore the buoys." The fleet moved deeper into the region marked as Terran space. Far away, on a station hidden among the asteroids beyond Mars, Admiral Taesoon watched the enemy fleet on his display screen. The old soldier had been waiting for this day for many years. Every military leader hoped for peace, but a wise one prepared for war. They passed the first warning line, reported Lieutenant Yuna from her communication station. She was young, but her voice remained steady. No change in their course or speed. Taesoon nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Velrani Empire was not known for respecting boundaries. They took what they wanted because no one had ever stopped them. "Send the final message," he said. "Make sure they understand." Yuna turned to her console and began to speak into the transmission system. Her words would travel across space at the speed of light, reaching the alien fleet within hours. "Attention, unidentified fleet. This is Lieutenant Yuna of Earth's Outer Defense Command. You have entered Terran space without authorization. This is your final warning. Turn back now, and no harm will come to you. Continue forward, and you will face consequences. Earth does not wish for conflict, but we will defend our home. The choice is yours." She ended the transmission and looked at Admiral Taesoon. "Message sent, sir." "Good," the Admiral replied. "Now we wait." On the Throne of Stars, the message arrived several hours later. Vorath listened to the human female's words with growing amusement. He played it twice, then a third time, just so his officers could appreciate the absurdity. "They do not wish for conflict," he repeated, mocking the human's tone. "How generous of them. They will defend their home. With what, I wonder? Harsh language?" The bridge crew laughed nervously. They were loyal soldiers, and they laughed when their commander laughed. Only Kira remained silent. She stood near the tactical display, studying the readings that came from their sensors. Something bothered her. though she could not identify what. "High Commander," she said carefully, "I noticed that we have detected no other ships since entering this region. No civilian traffic, no patrol vessels, nothing. Vorath. Perhaps they all ran away when they saw us coming. Cowards often flee before superior forces." "Perhaps," Kira agreed. "But even cowards leave traces. Abandoned stations, scattered debris, something. Our sensors show nothing. It is as if this entire region has been emptied." "You worry too much, Sub-Commander. These humans are primitive. They probably lack the ships to patrol such a large area." Kira wanted to argue, but she knew better. Vorath had led them to victory many times. His confidence came from experience. Still, she made a note in her personal log. Something about this situation felt wrong. Back on Earth's defense station, Admiral Taesoon watched the enemy fleet continue its approach. They had received the warning and ignored it, just as he knew they would. "Lieutenant Yuna," he said quietly, "initiate protocol silence." Yuna's fingers moved across her console. Throughout the solar system, signals went out to every human ship, every station, every satellite. Within minutes, the entire network went dark. Ships powered down their engines and drifted in carefully planned positions. Stations stopped all transmissions. Even the automatic beacons that normally guided civilian traffic fell silent. From the outside, it would look as if humanity had simply vanished. "Protocol silence is active," Yuna reported. "All units confirm compliance." Taesoon leaned back in his chair. The Velrani thought they were hunting prey. They did not realize they had walked into a trap that had been decades in the making. "Now we watch," he said. "And we wait." On the throne of stars, the sudden silence caught Vorath's attention. One moment, his sensors detected faint signals from somewhere ahead. Human communications, navigation beacons, the normal noise of a spacefaring civilization. Then, without warning, everything stopped. What happened? Vorath demanded. Kira checked her instruments. "All human signals have ceased, High Commander. There is nothing on any frequency. Equipment failure?" "No, sir. Our systems are functioning normally. The humans have simply stopped transmitting." Vorath frowned. This was unusual. Species facing conquest typically panicked. They sent desperate messages, pleaded for mercy, or tried to negotiate. They did not go silent. "Cowards," he said finally. "They are hiding, hoping we will go away. They will learn that the Empire does not forget, and the Empire does not forgive." He turned to his navigation officer. "Increase speed. I want to reach their homeworld within 5 days." The fleet accelerated toward Earth. Their engines burning bright against the darkness of space stopped behind them. Unseen and undetected, dozens of small human vessels followed. They made no transmissions, produced almost no heat, and moved like shadows through the void. Captain Dongwook sat in the command chair of his stealth ship, watching the massive alien fleet pass overhead. His vessel was tiny compared to those warships, barely larger than a shuttle. But size did not matter in this kind of warfare. "Stay close," he whispered to his crew, though there was no need for silence in the vacuum of space. "Record everything. We need to know exactly what we are dealing with." His sensor operator, Specialist Ki Wu, worked her instruments with practiced skill. Every ship in the enemy fleet was being cataloged. Weapon types, shield frequencies, engine signatures, crew numbers. Information that would prove invaluable in the days ahead. The Velrani had no idea they were being watched. They flew forward with the arrogance of conquerors, certain that nothing could stop them. They were about to learn that Earth did not make empty warnings. 3 days passed in silence. The Velrani fleet moved deeper into Terran space, and with each passing hour, the emptiness grew heavier. High Commander Vorath stood on his bridge, staring at the star map that showed their progress. They had traveled millions of kilometers, and they had seen nothing. No ships, no stations, no signs of life at all. Vareth told himself this was a good thing. It meant the humans were weak, too weak to even patrol their own territory. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered that something was wrong. He pushed the thought away. The Varani Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had never met a species they could not defeat. These humans would be no different. Report. He commanded. Sub-Commander Kira stepped forward, her tablet in hand. She looked tired. None of them had slept well since entering this strange, quiet region of space. Our scouts continue to find nothing, High Commander. No debris, no energy signatures, no evidence of any civilization ahead. What about our long-range sensors? They should be able to detect a populated planet by now. Kira hesitated. That is the strange part, sir. Our sensors show the star ahead, the one the humans call Sol. We can see their planets, but we cannot detect any artificial structures. No orbital stations, no satellites, nothing. Impossible, Voreth growled. Any spacefaring species would have infrastructure around their homeworld. Shipyards, defense platforms, communication relays. I agree, High Commander. Which means either they have none, or what? Kira took a breath. Or they are hiding everything from our sensors somehow. Voreth laughed, but there was no humor in it. You suggest these primitives have technology superior to ours? The Varani Empire has spent centuries perfecting our sensors. No species has ever managed to hide from us. I am simply reporting what the data shows, sir. Vareth waved his hand dismissively. Continue the approach. Their tricks will not save them. The fleet pressed on, 500 warships flying in perfect formation. They were a magnificent sight, a display of military power that had brought countless civilizations to their knees. Surely these humans would surrender the moment they saw such a force. But the humans were not watching from afar. They were much closer than Vareth realized. Captain Dong-wook guided his stealth ship through the darkness between the alien vessels. His craft was painted black and produced almost no heat or radiation. To the Varani sensors, he was invisible. For 3 days, he and his crew had followed the enemy fleet. They had mapped every ship, recorded every communication, and studied every weapon system. The information they gathered flowed back to Admiral Tae-sung through tight beam laser transmissions that could not be detected by conventional sensors. How are we doing, Ji-woo? Dong-wook asked quietly. Specialist Ji-woo checked their instruments. I have completed the scan of their flagship, Captain. Shield frequency recorded. Weapon power levels estimated. Crew complement approximately 8,000. 8,000 on one ship. They really do like to build them big. Size can be a weakness, Ji-woo replied. A large ship is a large target. Dong-wook smiled. Ji-woo was young, but she understood warfare better than many veterans. Size and strength meant nothing if you could not find your enemy. What about their communications? He asked. Heavily encrypted, but we have samples of their language now. The analysts back home should be able to decode their messages within a day or two. Good. Anything else? Ji-woo paused, then turned to face her captain. Sir, I have been tracking their scout ships. The small ones they send ahead to check for dangers. And 17 of them have vanished in the past 2 days. No distress signals. No debris. They simply disappeared. Dong-wook nodded slowly. He knew what had happened to those scouts. Other human stealth ships had intercepted them, disabled their engines, and captured the crews before they could send any warnings. The prisoners were now being held on a hidden station near Neptune, treated well, but kept out of contact with their fleet. It was not cruelty. It was necessity. The Velrani could not know how many eyes watched them from the shadows. "Have they noticed the missing ships?" Dongwook asked. "Some of their officers have raised concerns, but their high commander dismisses them. He believes the scouts encountered technical failures or got lost." "Arrogance," Dongwook said softly. "It makes them blind." On the throne of stars, Kira studied the latest reports with growing unease. 17 scout ships gone. No explanations. No wreckage. Ships did not simply disappear without a trace. She approached Vorath carefully. The High Commander's mood had darkened over the past day, and he did not welcome bad news. "Sir, I must report something troubling." Vorath did not look at her. He continued staring at the star map, watching their slow progress toward Earth. "What now?" "We have lost contact with 17 scout vessels. All communications have ceased. They do not respond to any frequency. Equipment failures. Space is dangerous, even for experienced pilots. With respect, High Commander, 17 ships do not all fail at the same time. Something is happening to them." Vorath finally turned to face her. His eyes were cold. "What do you suggest, Sub-Commander? That we turn back because a few scouts got lost? The Emperor sent us to conquer this system, not to run at the first sign of difficulty. I suggest only caution, sir. We are in unknown territory, facing an enemy who has shown strange behavior. Perhaps we should slow our approach and investigate what happened to our missing ships." For a moment, Kira thought Vorath might agree. Something flickered in his eyes, a shadow of doubt. But then it passed, replaced by the familiar arrogance. "We press forward," he said. "If these humans think they can frighten us with shadows and silence, they are wrong. The Velrani do not fear." Kira bowed her head. "Yes, High Commander." She returned to her station, but she did not stop watching the sensor readings. Somewhere out there, something hunted them. She could feel it. Back at the defense station, Admiral Taesung received the latest update from Captain Dongwook. He read through the data carefully, noting every detail about the enemy fleet. Shield frequencies, weapon types, communication codes. Everything they needed. Lieutenant Yuna approached his chair. "Admiral, we have enough information now. Should we proceed to the next phase?" Taesung was quiet for a long moment. He was an old soldier, and he had seen many battles in his lifetime. He knew that once they committed to this path, there would be no turning back. People would die, both human and Velrani. But the alternative was worse. If the Empire conquered Earth, humanity would be enslaved or destroyed. Everything they had built, everything they had dreamed, would be gone. "Signal all units," he said finally. "Prepare for Phase 2. We spring the trap when they reach Saturn." "Yes, sir." Yuna turned to her console and began sending the coded messages. Across the solar system, human ships received their orders. Crews who had waited in darkness for days began their final preparations. Weapon systems were charged. Navigation courses were plotted. Everyone knew their role. Admiral Taesung looked at the image of the approaching fleet on his screen. 500 warships filled with soldiers who believed they could not be beaten. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Specialist Ji Woo sends one more report," Yuna said. "She says the enemy commander shows no sign of suspicion. He believes we are hiding out of fear." "Good," Taesung replied. "Let him keep believing that. The best trap is one the enemy walks into willingly." In the cold darkness of space, the Velrani fleet flew on toward Earth. They did not know that they had been watched from the moment they entered Terran space. They did not know that every move they made had been recorded and analyzed. They did not know that their shield frequencies had been broken and their communication codes had been cracked. They knew only that they were the conquerors. And soon, another world would fall. But Earth had other plans, and the humans were ready. The Velrani fleet reached the outer edge of the Sol system on the 6th day. High Commander Vorath stood on his bridge, watching the distant sun grow brighter on the main screen. Soon, he would claim this system for the Empire. His name would be remembered forever. Status report. He commanded. Sub-Commander Kira checked her instruments. All ships in formation, High Commander. We are approaching the outer planets. Long-range sensors detect several large gas giants ahead. And the enemy? Still nothing, sir. No ships, no defenses, no signals of any kind. Vorath smiled. The humans had given up. They knew they could not win, so they hid like frightened animals, hoping the predator would pass them by. Foolish creatures. Take us through the outer planets, he ordered. We approach Earth directly. The fleet changed course, moving toward a massive ringed planet that the humans called Saturn. It was beautiful in a cold way, with bands of color swirling across its surface and thousands of ice fragments circling its equator. Vorath barely glanced at it. He had seen many planets in his career. This one would soon belong to the Empire, like all the others. Then the first ship exploded. The blast was sudden and violent. One moment, a cruiser flew in perfect formation with the fleet. The next moment, it twisted sideways, pulled by invisible forces, and slammed into another vessel. Both ships erupted in flames. Alarms screamed across every bridge in the fleet. What happened? Vorath shouted. Kira worked her console frantically. Gravitational anomaly, High Commander. Something pulled that ship off course. Artificial gravity wells hidden in the asteroid field. More ships began to veer away from the formation. Captains struggled to control their vessels as unseen forces grabbed them and dragged them toward collisions. The careful formation broke apart into chaos. All ships full reverse. Vorath commanded. Get away from those asteroids. But it was too late. The humans had spent years placing mass generators on thousands of rocks throughout the outer system. They sat dormant until the enemy fleet arrived, then activated all at once. The result was a maze of invisible traps that no navigator could avoid. 40 ships were destroyed in the first hour. Another 60 were damaged so badly they could not continue. Crews abandoned crippled vessels and were picked up by their surviving comrades. Vorath stood in the center of his bridge, watching the disaster unfold. His hands shook with rage. This was impossible. The Velrani had the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. They should not be losing ships to rocks and tricks. Find the source of those gravity wells, he snarled. Destroy them. Kira shook her head. The generators are too small, sir. Thousands of them, scattered across millions of kilometers. We would need weeks to find and destroy them all. Then we go around. There must be a clear path. I am searching, High Commander, but every route shows the same readings. They have trapped the entire outer system. Far away, hidden among the rings of Saturn, Admiral Taeseung watched the enemy fleet struggle. The first phase of the trap had worked perfectly. The Velrani had lost 100 ships without a single human firing a weapon. Phase 2, he said calmly. Activate the pulse satellites. Lieutenant Yuna sent the signal. Across the battlefield, small satellites that had drifted unnoticed among the chaos suddenly came to life. They released massive electromagnetic pulses that washed over the nearby Velrani ships. Navigation systems failed. Targeting computers went dark. Communication arrays burst into static. Ships that had avoided the gravity wells now drifted blind and helpless. Another 60 ships disabled, Yuna reported. Their fleet is in complete disorder. Taeseung nodded slowly. The Velrani still outnumbered them badly, but numbers meant nothing if you could not find your enemy. The humans remained invisible, hidden among the asteroids and rings, watching and waiting. On the throne of stars, Vorath fought to restore order. His officers shouted reports at him from every direction. Ships damaged. Ships destroyed. Ships drifting without power. The fleet that had entered this system so proudly was falling apart. Where are they? He screamed. Where are the humans? I want targets. We cannot find them, High Commander, Kira replied. Our sensors detect nothing. No ships, no stations. They are attacking us without showing themselves. That is impossible. Weapons do not fire themselves. A new voice cut through the chaos. The communication system crackled with static, then cleared. A human female spoke in calm, measured tones. Attention, Velrani Fleet. This is Lieutenant Yuna of Earth's Defense Command. You have entered Terran space without authorization and ignored our warnings. Many of your ships have been destroyed or disabled. Many of your people have died. Vorath stared at the speaker in disbelief. The humans were talking to him. Finally, he could face his enemy. You still have a choice, Yuna continued. Turn back now, and we will allow your remaining ships to leave safely. We do not want more death. We do not want war. But we will defend our home. This is your final chance. Leave now. The message ended. Silence fell across the bridge. Kira looked at her commander. High Commander, perhaps we should consider. No. Vorath's voice was cold as ice. We do not retreat. The Empire does not retreat. These humans have killed our people with tricks and traps. They will pay for every ship they destroyed. He turned to his officers. All ships capable of fighting will form on my command. We push through their defenses and strike at their homeworld directly. Once we control Earth, their tricks will mean nothing. The order went out. 300 ships, all that remained combat capable, gathered around the flagship. They moved forward slowly, cautiously, watching for more traps, but the humans were no longer hiding. Captain Dong Wook led the first attack. His stealth ship, cloaked behind a Velrani cruiser, fired a single precise shot at its engines and vanished again before they could react. The cruiser went dark, drifting helplessly all across the battlefield. Similar attacks began. Human ships appeared for seconds, struck with surgical precision, and disappeared. They did not aim for reactors or crew quarters. They targeted engines, leaving ships stranded but intact. They are not trying to kill us, Kira realized. They are disabling our fleet piece by piece. Then why? Vorath demanded. Why not destroy us when they have the chance? Kira had no answer. Neither did any of the other officers. They had fought many wars, but never against an enemy like this. A species that showed restraint even in victory was something new and terrifying. By the end of the day, 200 Velrani ships drifted dead in space. Their crews sat in darkness, waiting for rescue that might never come. The remaining 100 ships clustered around the flagship, shields raised, weapons ready. But they had nothing to shoot at. Admiral Taesung surveyed the battlefield from his command station. The plan had worked better than he hoped. Half the enemy fleet was disabled, and human casualties were 0. Lieutenant Yuna, send rescue ships to the disabled vessels. Offer medical aid and supplies. Do not harm the crews. Yuna looked surprised. Sir? They are enemies. They are people, Taesung replied. Soldiers following orders, just like our own. We defeat the fleet, not murder the helpless. That is not the human way. Yuna nodded slowly. She understood, even if it seemed strange. Yes, Admiral. Across the battlefield, human vessels approached the drifting Velrani ships. They came not with weapons, but with food and medicine. Confused alien soldiers watched in disbelief as their enemies offered help instead of death. The war was not over. But something had changed. For the first time, the Velrani began to understand that these humans were not like any enemy they had faced before. and that was the most frightening thing of all. The Velrani prisoners could not understand what was happening. They sat in the medical bay of a human rescue ship, wrapped in warm blankets and holding cups of hot liquid that the humans called tea. Just hours ago, they had been soldiers of the greatest empire in the galaxy. Now they were captives, waiting for execution or torture. But no execution came. No torture. Only kindness. Medic Anul moved among the wounded Velrani with gentle hands and a calm voice. She cleaned their wounds, applied bandages, and gave medicine for pain. When one soldier flinched away from her, she simply smiled and spoke soft words until he allowed her to help. Why? The soldier asked, his translator struggling with the human language. Why do you help us? We came to conquer your world. Anul paused in her work. She looked at the alien's face, so different from her own, yet showing emotions she recognized. Fear, confusion, shame. You are hurt, she said simply. That is reason enough. The soldier stared at her for a long moment. Then he lowered his head and allowed her to continue treating his wounds. Across the room, other human medics did the same. Velrani soldiers who had expected death found food and water and warmth instead. The young ones cried with relief. The older ones sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they were experiencing. Meanwhile, the battle continued. High Commander Vorath led his remaining 100 ships toward the inner planets. He had lost most of his fleet, but he still had his flagship and his pride. The Empire did not retreat. The Empire did not surrender. He would reach Earth and conquer it, even if he had to do it with a single ship. But the humans had other plans. As the Velrani fleet approached Mars, the red planet suddenly came alive with light. Orbital defense platforms that had sat dark and silent for days powered up all at once. Their weapons charged, glowing bright against the darkness of space. Contact! Kira shouted. Multiple defense stations ahead. They were hiding their power signatures. Vorath felt cold fear creep into his heart. He pushed it away. Fear was weakness, and he was not weak. All ships, attack formation. Destroy those platforms. The fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. Missiles and energy beams streaked toward the human stations. But something strange happened. Most of the weapons missed. Some veered off course at the last moment. Others simply stopped working and tumbled harmlessly through space. They know our targeting frequencies, Kira realized. They have countermeasures calibrated specifically for our weapons. Impossible! How could they know? But Vorath already knew the answer. The scout ships. The days of silence. The humans had been watching them, studying them, learning everything about their technology. And now they used that knowledge with deadly effect. The human platforms returned fire. Their weapons did not miss. Precisely aimed shots struck Velrani ships exactly where their shields were weakest. Engine after engine exploded. Ship after ship went dark. In 20 minutes, the Velrani fleet lost 50 more vessels. Captain Dongwook led his squadron through the chaos. His stealth ships moved like ghosts, appearing just long enough to deliver crippling strikes before vanishing again. He did not feel joy in the destruction. These were enemies, but they were also living beings with families waiting for them back home. Target engines only, he reminded his crews. Disable, do not destroy. We want them alive. His pilots obeyed. They were soldiers, but they were also human. Killing was sometimes necessary, but cruelty was never acceptable. On the throne of stars, Vorath watched his fleet die around him. Only 47 ships remained combat capable. 47 out of 500. The greatest defeat in Velrani history. Kira approached him quietly. For once, her face showed no calculation, only exhaustion and grief. Commander, we must withdraw. We cannot win this battle. "The Empire does not retreat," Vorath said, but his voice was hollow now. "The Empire will not exist if we all die here. Someone must return to tell the Emperor what happened. Someone must warn our people about these humans." Vorath turned to look at her. He wanted to argue, to insist that they fight to the last ship. But he saw the faces of his crew, young soldiers who had trusted him to lead them to victory. He had failed them. "You are right," he said finally. The words tasted like poison. "Order all ships to—" Before he could finish, alarms screamed again. A small craft had docked with the flagship without permission. Human soldiers were aboard. "Security to the main airlock." Kira shouted, "Repel boarders." But the human boarding party moved faster than expected. They wore light armor and carried weapons, but they did not shoot anyone. They simply walked through the corridors of the flagship with calm purpose, stunning anyone who stood in their way. Minutes later, the bridge doors opened. Captain Dongwook stepped through, followed by 4 of his soldiers. He looked at the Velvany officers with steady eyes, showing no fear despite being surrounded by enemies. "I, Commander Vorath," he said. "I am Captain Dongwook of Earth's Defense Force. I am not here to capture you or destroy your ship." Vorath stared at him in disbelief. "Then why are you here?" "To deliver a message. One that must be given in person." Dongwook reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the deck between them. "Your Emperor needs to hear what happens next." The device activated, projecting an image into the air. Admiral Taesung appeared, his weathered face calm and serious. "High Commander Vorath," the Admiral said. "Your fleet has been defeated. Most of your ships have been disabled, not destroyed. Most of your people are alive, not dead. This was by choice, not by accident." Vorath said nothing. He simply listened. "We could have killed every soldier in your fleet. Our weapons were aimed at your reactors, not your engines. One command from me would have ended thousands of lives. But we chose mercy instead." "Why?" Vorath asked. "We came to conquer you. We would have shown no mercy to your people. Perhaps. But we are not you." Taesung's image seemed to look directly at Vorath. "Earth has survived for billions of years. Humanity has survived for hundreds of thousands. We have faced extinction many times, and we have learned that true strength does not require cruelty. We defeat our enemies, but we do not hate them." The image flickered, then changed. Now it showed the rescue ships, the medical bays, the Velrani prisoners being treated with kindness. Vorath watched his own soldiers receiving care from the people they had come to enslave. "Your people are being fed, healed, and protected," Taesung continued. "When this is over, they will be returned to you. Every single one. Not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to choose peace over revenge." Captain Dongwook stepped forward. "High Commander, you will be allowed to leave with your surviving ships. You will carry a message back to your Emperor. Tell him what you saw here. Tell him that Terran space is closed. Any ship that enters will be disabled and returned. Any fleet that enters will be destroyed." Vorath looked at the human captain. So small compared to a Varani warrior. So young. Yet there was something in his eyes that Vorath recognized. The look of a soldier who had seen death and chose to stand against it anyway. "And if the Emperor sends a larger fleet?" Vorath asked. 1,000 ships? 10,000? Dongwook smiled slightly. "Then we will defeat them too. And we will still show mercy. Because that is who we are." He turned and walked toward the door, his soldiers following. At the threshold, he paused and looked back. "Go home, High Commander. Tell your Emperor the truth. The humans do not want war, but we will never surrender our home." Then he was gone, leaving Vorath alone with his broken fleet and his broken pride. Kira touched his arm gently. "Sir, what are your orders?" Vorath closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed in his expression. Not defeat exactly. Something deeper. "Set course for the Empire," he said quietly. "We have a message to deliver." The 47 surviving ships turned away from Earth and began the long journey home. Behind them, human rescue vessels continued their work, pulling Velrani survivors from disabled ships and treating their wounds with care. The battle was over, but the message was just beginning. 1 month later, the survivors returned to the Empire. 47 ships limped into the capital system, their hulls scarred and their crews silent. News of their arrival spread quickly through the planets. The greatest fleet ever assembled by the Velrani Empire had been sent to conquer a primitive species. Now only a fraction remained. High Commander Vorath walked through the grand halls of the Imperial Palace, his footsteps echoing against the stone floor. Servants and nobles watched him pass with wide eyes. They had heard rumors of the disaster, but no one knew the full truth. Soon they would. The throne room was vast and cold, filled with the trophies of 1,000 conquered worlds. Weapons taken from defeated enemies. Flags of fallen nations. Skulls of those who had dared to resist. Emperor Velthus sat on a throne made from the metal of destroyed warships, surrounded by his advisors and generals. Vorath knelt before his emperor. He had practiced this moment many times during the journey home, but the words still felt heavy in his throat. "Rise," Emperor Velthus commanded. His voice was sharp with barely controlled anger. "Explain to me how 500 of my finest warships were defeated by primitives who can barely travel between stars." Vorath stood. He looked at his emperor, this being who had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and he told the truth. "They were not primitives, my emperor. They were something we have never encountered before." He told the story from the beginning. The warning buoys. The silence. The invisible watchers who learned every secret of their fleet. The gravity traps and electromagnetic pulses. The surgical strikes that disabled without destroying. The rescue ships that came with medicine instead of weapons. The throne room grew quieter with each word. Generals who had won 100 battles listened in disbelief. Advisors who had planned 1,000 conquests stared at Vorath as if he had lost his mind. When he finished, Emperor Velthus sat in silence for a long moment. "You were telling me," the Emperor said slowly, "that these humans defeated you through superior tactics, superior technology, and superior discipline. And then, instead of destroying your fleet, they healed your wounded and sent you home." "Yes, my Emperor." "Why? What do they want?" "They want us to leave them alone. Nothing more." Emperor Velthus leaned forward on his throne. "Impossible. Every species wants something. Power, resources, territory. No one shows mercy without expecting payment." Vorath shook his head. "I spoke with their captain personally. He said they chose peace over revenge because that is who they are. I did not believe him at first. But then I saw their medics treating our wounded. I saw their soldiers offering food to our starving crews. They had every reason to hate us, and they chose kindness instead." "Weakness," one of the generals muttered. "Soft hearts make soft soldiers." "Then explain how their soft soldiers destroyed 400 of our ships without taking a single loss themselves," Vorath replied. "Explain how they knew our shield frequencies before we even engaged them. Explain how they appeared and vanished like ghosts while our finest pilots could not land a single hit." The general fell. Silent, Emperor Velthus rose from his throne and walked to a window overlooking the capital city. Millions of his subjects lived below, trusting him to protect them from the dangers of the galaxy. He had built an empire through conquest and fear. Now he faced a species that offered neither. "What do you recommend, High Commander?" the Emperor asked without turning around. Varth considered his answer carefully. A month ago, he would have demanded a larger fleet, more ships, more soldiers. He would have insisted on revenge. But something had changed in him during that long journey home. He had seen his enemies act with honor, and it had forced him to look at himself. "I recommend we accept their terms," he said. "They ask only that we respect their borders. In return, they offer peace. Peace." The Emperor spoke the word as if tasting something unfamiliar. "We have never made peace with those we could conquer. Perhaps it is time to try, my Emperor. These humans, they are not like us. They do not seek to destroy their enemies, but they will defend their home against any threat, no matter how powerful. If we send another fleet, they will defeat it. If we send a third, they will defeat that too. And each time, they will return our survivors unharmed until we finally understand that they cannot be conquered." Emperor Velthus was silent for a long time. Then he turned back to face his court. "Contact these humans. Tell them we accept their boundary. Terran space will remain close to the Empire." Gasps echoed through the throne room. The Emperor had never retreated from anything. Yet here he was, acknowledging that some territories were beyond his reach. But Velthus was not finished. "Find me their leader. I wish to speak with them directly." 1 week later, Ambassador Yunbai appeared before the Emperor via long-range transmission. She was a small woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice, nothing like the warriors Voreth had expected. "Emperor Velthus," she said with a respectful bow, "I am honored to speak with you. Earth wishes only friendship with the Vorani Empire." "Friendship," the Emperor repeated. "We came to conquer you. We plan to enslave your people and claim your resources. How can you speak of friendship after such an insult?" Yunbai smiled softly. "Because holding on to anger would only hurt us both. You sent soldiers to our home, and we defended ourselves. Now that conflict is over, we can choose what comes next. We can remain enemies forever, or we can learn from each other. What could we possibly learn from you? Perhaps nothing. Or perhaps everything. Humanity has spent its history fighting itself. We have seen the worst of what war can bring. We learned, slowly and painfully, that true strength comes not from destroying your enemies, but from turning them into friends." Emperor Velthus considered her words. They were strange ideas, foreign to everything he had been taught. Yet the evidence stood before him. His fleet had been crushed, but his soldiers had been returned alive. His pride had been wounded, but his people remained unharmed. "You are an unusual species," he said finally. "Yes," Yunbai agreed. "We are, and we hope someday you will find that more interesting than threatening." The Emperor was quiet for a moment. Then, for the first time anyone could remember, he laughed. Not a cruel laugh or a mocking one, but something almost genuine. "Very well, Ambassador. Let us see what friendship looks like." Years passed. A permanent marker was placed at the edge of Terran space, a simple beacon repeating a simple message in 100 languages. "Warning, Terran space ahead. Entry by invitation only. Ships from across the galaxy. Learn to respect that boundary." Some came seeking trade. Others came seeking knowledge. A few, the stubborn ones, came seeking conquest. They learned the same lesson the Voran had learned. On a distant world at the heart of the Empire, a young Vorani child asked her grandfather a question that children had been asking for generations. "Grandfather, why did we never conquer Earth?" The old warrior, once a junior officer on the throne of stars, looked at his grandchild with ancient eyes. He remembered the battle. He remembered the fear and the shame and the strange moment when a human medic had treated his wounds with gentleness he did not deserve. "Because the humans asked us not to," he said simply. The child frowned. "But we are the Empire. We conquer everyone. Not everyone, the grandfather replied. Some worlds are protected by weapons and shields. Earth is protected by something stronger. What? The old warrior smiled, remembering Captain Dongwook standing alone on the bridge of their flagship, offering peace instead of demanding surrender. Mercy, he said. They are protected by mercy. And that is a power no fleet can defeat. Far away, beyond the marked boundary, Earth continued its quiet existence. The blue planet spun in the warmth of its sun, home to billions of humans who went about their daily lives without knowing how close they had come to destruction. Admiral Taesung retired to a small house by the ocean. Lieutenant Yuna became an admiral herself, continuing the work of keeping humanity safe. Captain Dongwook trained a new generation of soldiers, teaching them that victory without honor was not victory at all. And in the vastness of space, other civilizations began to share stories about the strange species that lived in a small corner of the galaxy. The humans, they called them. The ones who could defeat any enemy but chose not to destroy them. The ones who offered help to those who had tried to harm them. Some found this strange. Others found it weak, but those who had faced Earth directly, those who had received mercy when they expected death, knew the truth. The humans were not weak. They were simply strong enough to be kind, and that made them the most dangerous species of all.